All right, so like I said, I just want to go over a little bit on why we assess in our uh, regular group classes and also with individuals who are more looking for a more individual approach to things. So we do assess everybody that comes through the gym, whether they're going into the group classes or into individual programming, or whether they're online or a remote client. We do this from video analysis and different ways we can do the same assessments, even if you're a remote client. But main thing is that I want to go over in this is that we do assess everybody that comes through for our group classes and kind of the reason for that. Um, I kind of my first thought on it and what I kind of battled for a while is why should we assess if we're putting them into a group class that's just a group workout, and I had issue with that, so we tweaked it a little bit and did what we could, and now we assess. And I didn't want to drop the assessment because I thought that was important. I wanted to make it to where the assessment mattered in it, and even if they're going to the group class, we could do something with the assessment information that we got. So just getting into a little bit of that. So again, a group class. What does the assessment involve? First, during the consult, we'll sit down in the office and just discuss, the background information, their exercise history, where they're coming from, what their goals are, any injuries they've had, any medical conditions they've had. Again, what are their goals going forward, and why are they here? So the background, the exercise history, that plays a factor in what I know going into the movement assessment and where they're going to be falling into the group classes as far as their abilities, and kind of how to talk to them and how to relate to them a little bit better. Because if we have somebody who's maybe coming in from a background of playing high school and collegiate level football, and they've been out for a year or two, and now they're coming back in and wanting to get back in shape like they were, I'm going to talk to them and communicate with them differently than I will a mom of three who has never done anything athletic in her life, and she's just now she's just wanting to get in shape for the first time ever. Um, Even before we get to the exercise prescription, the way you communicate and relate to them is going to be different. Any past injuries or medical conditions is going to be important just because to know before you get into the movement assessment so that you have a better idea. Maybe maybe they've had a torn ACL or they've hurt their ankle in the past. That'll make you a little bit more aware going into the movement assessment of kind of what to be looking for. Their goals going forward and kind of why you're here, those kind of go together. But typically people come in and, their goals are to lose a little bit of weight or get into a little bit better shape. And that's kind of it on the surface. And if you can get a little bit deeper into why they're really here, and why they really want to lose weight or why they want to look better or why they want to relieve stress or different motivating factors like that, why they're really here, you can remind them of that when they're in the class and they're either frustrated with their progress or they're wanting to reach and achieve something that may not be not necessarily realistic, but may not be smart for what their goals are. So if it's putting them in risk of injury, and and you know that it doesn't line up with their goals, you can remind them of that when they're wanting to go for that thing that may put them at a risk for injury. Whereas if you didn't know that, then I guess you could just let them go and try to achieve that thing and let them get injured, or the side effect would be them getting injured, and that would be up to you. You can't just say they got injured trying to do a muscle up. It's your responsibility as a coach to allow that or not allow that. So um, their goal and why they're here is an important piece. As far as the movement assessment, it's pretty straightforward. Joint by joint approach, similar to the functional movement screen, with a little bit different things added to it and taken away from it. Looking for mobility limitations. What are the mobility limitations? Are they equal on both sides? Um, they may come in and say they have tight shoulders, and you may discover that it's tight thoracic spine or tight hips. And it also may be due to strength limitations. So some people may feel not very mobile or tight, but they're which may be the case, but another big cause or problem may be that they're not strong enough in certain positions to hold it in position, so the stability of the joints and stability of the muscles isn't there. You can kind of learn that from a little bit of the assessment. Strength imbalances and weaknesses, just seeing if there's anything that's not moving properly, moving the same on both sides, making sure the shoulders are moving together, making sure the hips are moving together, making sure they're keeping everything stable. It's very often very common for one side to be a little bit stronger than the other, or one arm or leg to be a little bit stronger than the other, or maybe their core is weak, or maybe their low back is weak. Whatever the case, it doesn't matter really how common something is. If it's not the way it should be, then it's still a problem. So, like I said, a lot of people have one limb that's stronger than the other, and just because that's extremely common doesn't mean it's okay, and doesn't mean it won't cause injury down the road. And fixing those things on the front end can drastically decrease the risk of injury later on when they're doing a lot of double leg or double limb exercises. So maybe they're doing a bunch of pull-ups, or maybe they're doing a bunch of squats, and one leg is stronger than the other. They're constantly favoring that one side. They may not have any pain for 3 years, but eventually it's going to cause some issues down the road, whether it's in your back or in your hips or in your legs or in your ankles, or maybe even in your shoulders. But eventually that imbalance is going to cause problems down the road. So we want to fix that on the front end to prevent that. So why is this important for our group clients? Because they are going into a group class. So once we do this assessment, we put them in the group class, which is a group program design, but it's not going to be the same for everybody. So we have a couple of different options within the group classes that can more kind of go towards your goals or your limitations, and also it's the responsibility of the coaches within the classes to know those limitations and to know those assessments from the client, and to keep them from doing things that will put them in risk. So again, I'll just keep using the legs and the squat as an example. If we know somebody that can't pass a single leg test, meaning they have a pretty significant imbalance on one side or the other, or maybe they're not imbalanced, but they're just simply not strong enough to pass a single leg test on either leg. They don't need to be front squatting or back squatting until they can pass that test. So even though they go into a group class and we program front squats, if they don't pass that single leg test, that's our responsibility to allow them or force them to do single leg work until it gets up to par, or when they get hurt, that's on us. That's our problem. And so if we allow them to do those exercises that aren't safe for them, then that's on us. So the assessment, they're going into a group class. Just because they're in a group class doesn't mean you can't individualize it. It's also good for individual awareness. Most of the clients that come in, they don't really know their own bodies very well, just because they've never been, they're not exercise people themselves, or not exercise specialists themselves, and they've just never really paid attention to that kind of stuff, or maybe they've never been in a situation that would bring that to light. So they've never been in a situation that would show them that their left leg is stronger than their right leg, or their left shoulder and scapula doesn't move the same way their right one does. They've just never been in a position for that to be tested or looked at, so they don't know that. So it gives them insight into why things may function the way they do and what they can do with it. And depending on the assessment, the group classes may not be the answer for them. And again, that's our responsibility. That's a hard topic to cover, but in the end, the group class and the group program may not be the right program for them. Based off the assessment, if they don't fit into kind of a certain category, or maybe even if it's related to their goals, and you find this out in the consult, the group classes may not be the best option. So that's another reason we do the assessment. That's not very common, but it could be maybe if they have specific goals, or if they have specific limitations, then they may need to spend a little bit of time on individual programming. Like I said earlier, individualized within the group classes. So if there's certain exercises that these clients should not be doing, but they are in the group classes, maybe there's only one or two exercises they shouldn't be doing, so they'll be fine in the group classes, but they do need to be individualized, and they do need to be given specific exercise substitutions for those exercises that that shouldn't be safely performing. So the coaches coaching the group classes should be responsible for individualizing within the group class. Our individual assessment, meaning assessment for somebody going into individual program design, is just further in depth on everything, to sum it all up basically, but it's further investigating on why things feel the way they do or act the way they do. So maybe somebody comes to you and they've just got, maybe they don't have pain, but they have just kind of some kind of quirky feelings going on when they're doing certain movements. Maybe they notice something is just not right when they're doing certain movements, or like the guy had the other day that I posted about, his back locks up when he's doing certain things. He doesn't have back pain and he doesn't have back injury, but it locks up a lot. And this is very common with a lot of CrossFitters, and typically it can pretty easily be related to tight hip flexors and or tight hamstrings. And he does have tight hamstrings, but there was definitely more there when we did the assessment, when we tried to figure that out. And so again, there was no injury in the back or anything, and he's never done anything to his back or his legs. So we had to dig a little deeper and get into that full assessment to figure out kind of some things that may be going on. Look deeper at the mobility and possible limitations that can refer pain or complications. So again, the pain site is not always where the injury or the limitation is. Again, for that guy yesterday, we that had the back locking up, we looked at the back, and we looked at the core, we looked at all the way up to the thoracic spine and the shoulders, and we looked all the way down to the lower leg just to see what could be going on up or down the chain to be causing this problem in the low back. Again, the PT assessed the low back and core, I assessed the low back and core, and we couldn't really find anything specifically in the low back, so we had to look elsewhere to figure out what was going on and get some insight into what could possibly be going on and how we could fix that. Because if we just do strengthen the low back more and more, but the pain keeps coming, then obviously there's something else going on there. So it gives us deeper insight into what may be going on. We can also get into testing relative strengths. And what I mean by that is in our initial assessment with group clients, and even just the initial front-end assessment with individual clients that include this, but the assessment can continue into the week with individual clients as far as looking at relative numbers like back squat relative to front squat, back squat relative to deadlift, relative to power clean, relative to snatch, relative to close grip bench press, etc. Looking at all these different numbers relative to each other, making sure they're a balanced athlete, whatever balance may mean for them. Now, if they're not into the sport of fitness or our definition of kind of fitness, then balance may look different for different people. So balance for a power lifter is going to look different than balance for a fitness athlete or a weightlifter or a golfer or different things like that. So balance is all relative to that person's goals and sport that they're involved with. Individual needs. This gives us insight into their individual needs. So obviously, like I said, going into their sport they're training for is a reason for this. So why we do this, take action on the front end to protect from injury. If we can look at these things and find some imbalances on the front end, then we can prevent that before they end up with the injury, instead of them getting the injury and then trying to figure out what's going on or why that happened after it's already occurred. It gives us a better route for success. So again, taking the single leg example, if we find they have an imbalance side to side, and they just go into our group classes and start squatting, it's kind of blending the next 2 points together. If they just start squatting, they keep squatting more may not help them as much as if they would address the single leg issue first. Not only that, they won't progress as well in the squat. Not only that, but they may cause injury down the road. So it creates a better route for success and understanding and awareness for both the coach and the athlete. So again, this is just as much for the athlete as it is for the coach, because if the athlete has a better understanding of it, then when you tell them to do single leg work, they're going to know that it's for their own benefit and what they're trying to fix or what they're trying to prevent by doing this and having to take a different route in the group class rather than the what's kind of written on the board, and not just taking it for what it's worth, but they have an understanding of that, so they know they're training for something specific instead of you just telling them to quote unquote scale down to a different move. And I don't like to use the word scaling because it's not scaling, it's just making the workout appropriate for you. Scaling is just decreasing the weight. Making the workout appropriate for you is just smarter training. So that's why we do the assessment. It gives the coach and the athlete a better understanding and awareness of what's going on with their body and what we're going to do going forward to help with that. And that pretty much wraps up everything as far as the assessment. If you have any questions or anything, you can email us at help@liveironsharp.com or visit liveironsharp.com for more info. Email us there. Like I said, if you want some more info or you want some more details on the assessment process, or if you want to set up a free consult, just email us there and we'll get back in touch with you. And if there's any questions, just type in the chat box. Give 1 minute or so. All right, we'll wrap this up. Thank you all, and let me know if you have any questions.